Trains with the deportees arrived day and night at the Auschwitz station. After the train stopped and the wagons opened, they had to disembark immediately under the supervision of armed SS guards with dogs. Everything took place at a very fast pace and was accompanied by the screams of people and the barking of dogs. Upon arrival at the camp, the admission process, consisting of several phases, took place immediately. The first phase consisted of a shared bath in the so-called sauna, under showers or in washrooms. The humiliating joint shower took place in the presence of mocking SS guards and prison officials, with constant swearing, beatings, and bullying. In addition, the guards alternated hot and ice water with no warning. Then the prisoner's hair was completely shaved off. Some already arrived with cut hair from, for example, other internment and concentration camps. Prisoner number 7539 later recalled. In the morning we were lined up. We had to keep our things in the block, and they took us back to the neighboring camp. There was a large room in the barracks where we all had to undress. That was awful. People didn't want to undress because they were all there together, men and women. There was screaming, beating, crying. I remember well that my oldest sister, Bojana, who was 16 years old, did not want to undress, even though a lot of people were already naked. An SS man beat her, ripped her clothes off. My sister was screaming, crying, and defending herself. We had to tie our clothes together so that the number was visible. Then we were completely cut and shaved. We didn't recognize ourselves the way we looked afterwards. All personal belongings were confiscated, and they were given prison clothes. The prisoner recalled his disgust with these dirty rags. There were spots of blood, pus, and diarrhea on shirts, underwear, and dresses. The initial cleansing was followed by the registration of prisoners. Each received a strip of white canvas, which he had to wear sewn on the garment in the left half of his chest, and the men also on the outer seam of his right leg trousers. There were 3 symbols on the canvas: a triangle, a letter, and a number. The triangle was a tag every prisoner was given. Its color expressed the prisoner's category. The prison number replaced the name of each prisoner throughout his internment. The everyday life in the camp was determined mainly by the observance of the strict provisions of the unwritten camp rules or sadistic regulations that were set up informally. Around 4 o'clock in the morning, the day at the camp began with gong strikes that announced the wake-up call. While getting up, the prisoners were accompanied by SS guards and capos, shouting at them, beating and harassing them, pushing those who were still asleep out of their beds, pouring cold water over them, pulling their hair. Inside the barracks, inhabited by several hundred people, there was only minimal space and possibility to get dressed quickly, or some personal hygiene. It is known from German sources that both SS men, Wehrmacht soldiers, and concentration camp guards committed sexual crimes against Jewish women. The archives contain letters sent to Berlin by officers complaining about soldiers who did not comply with racial laws and committed violence against Jewish women. The officers requested instructions on how to respond to these facts and how to punish violators of the law on the protection of racial purity. There are also other sources that confirm the facts of crimes. But these testimonies are few, because most of the women were executed immediately or a few days after the incident. The women at Auschwitz also had a problem known as pregnancy. In the Kotzenlager, pregnancy was punishable by death. In extermination camps, any pregnant Jewish woman was immediately sent to the gas chamber. Sometimes they were used for so-called medical experiments. The most famous case is the story of Ruth Elias, who was sent from the Theresienstadt ghetto to Auschwitz, where she found herself at the disposal of the notorious Dr. Mengele. For ethical reasons, I cannot tell you what kind of suffering she had to face. After a short stay in Auschwitz, the prisoners began to feel the incessant hunger and thirst that accompanied them everywhere. Prisoners were supposed to receive food in the morning, at noon, and in the evening, but none of the rations met the established, albeit low, standards. The reason for this was the poor storage and disposal of spoiled products, shortcomings in the technical equipment of kitchens, but above all, theft committed by the security apparatus, but also by other prisoners, guided by their own hunger and instinct of self-preservation. Maria Nedvedeva, the prisoner's number is unknown, later recalled. "We got food once a day, and it was bad food. Fodder beetroot in small portions and 10 slices of bread. We had tea made from birch leaves, and we didn't see coffee the whole time we were there." Most of the prisoners suffered from constant hunger, which turned into prolonged malnutrition and gradually depleted the body. Some gathered and ate the roots, stems, and leaves of trees on the territory of the camp. All the men and women in the concentration camp had to work while they could. A small number of prisoners were selected for permanent work in kitchens, hospitals, and other camp facilities, which allowed them to get better living and eating conditions and, consequently, a better chance of survival. However, most of the prisoners did not have any benefits for work, as they worked very little and only occasionally. Some leaders of working groups, capos, and their assistants, armed with sticks or batons, ruthlessly and cruelly treated fellow prisoners, to which they were often forced by the SS, under threat of their own punishment. Prisoners who could not keep up with the set pace were beaten, which, combined with their physical exhaustion, sometimes led to their death. The only chance for the people imprisoned in Auschwitz was an escape attempt. The escape from the camp was mostly unsuccessful, as the prisoners had to cross heavily guarded and fenced with barbed wire spaces. Despite these unfavorable circumstances, some were willing to take the risk and tried to escape. According to incomplete records in the bunker book, more than 40 people tried to escape. In the very first report on the escape from this camp, it is noted that on April 7, 1943, a Polish prisoner, Stephanie Churon, escaped. The prisoner's number is unknown. The second woman who escaped was Veronika Valancevich, prisoner number 96 Wolweven. She escaped on February 6, 1944. Both girls were not captured, and their fate is unknown. Escape attempts mostly ended in failure. And although all the other prisoners knew about it, it didn't stop everyone from trying. Under these conditions, the escape attempt was a manifestation of deep despair, as well as courage and resistance to violence and a natural protest of the individual against the authorities. During the Second World War, more than 200,000 women passed through concentration camps.